All right, Freddie, you just got acquired for $85 billion. And just like me, I think you're using Fulfil. So why'd you guys pick Fulfil? What problems did you have in your business? And what did Fulfil help with?
I think it's the cliches you hear on this podcast a lot, but the reality is the Fulfil guys are entrepreneurs, and they've built a modern ERP that's been built over the last couple of years. So it's just much better. Well, again, I'm not super close in the detail, but it's the team suggests that it's just much better set up, much easier to navigate, and clearly built by entrepreneurs and people who understand the problems that businesses like us face. And I think we were on a more legacy ERP before, and we had so many issues. The account managers weren't technical, and so you're going through a lot of bullshit and a lot of pain. And generally, the Fulfil guys, it's a different level, and it's been a great platform for us.
Look, they're the best ERP option out there. You came from a legacy player to Fulfil. How painful was that experience? The offboarding to the onboarding?
I think the Fulfil onboarding was like half the time of the original one, and I think we were one of the first, non-US clients. So it's not perfect. There's some nuances versus how we do things in Europe versus the US. But the guys have a problem-solving mindset. They want to fix things. And as I said, they set things up to automate and make the team's lives easier, and to really give us flexibility to control our operations. And being in, 8 different markets, 5 different warehouses, you rely a lot on having a good ERP, and the fact that no one is complaining and saying this is terrible is a sign that it's actually doing a pretty good job.
Oh, totally, right? Like it's one of those things where if you don't hear about it, it's actually probably working. So yeah, and also you're such a global business. The fact it can work for you, it can work for you in the US, in the UK, and across all these markets, I think is a testament.
Yeah, we had a problem with our last ERP system that it broke over Black Friday. They were like, volume is no problem. It's like, we're doing huge volume, but there was a glitch in the system which they didn't realize, and the way our orders were like being run meant that the system just couldn't handle our orders, and so it broke over Black Friday, and we had to do major heart surgery on the operationals of the business. And I had 3 of the team working 24/7, manually processing orders just to keep the lights on. We had horrible backlogs, and the support was appalling. Really, they didn't understand the problem. They accused us of misuse of the systems, and it's a seriously scarring process. And as I said, I think the key with an ERP is you don't want to hear the team complaining about it, and you want it to be doing its job, which is processing your orders in an efficient, clear way, managing your inventory, and making sure everything can run smoothly. And the business has run, by and large, touch wood, over the last 9 months, a lot smoother than it was before.
Man, that you just described the ERP nightmare. So I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I'm glad that wasn't Fulfil. My last question for you, you sold for $900 trillion. Would you be able to sell the business without an ERP? Or it was mission critical, you couldn't get to where you are?
I think with our complexity of different warehouses, different countries, and the level of scrutiny that you're going to come under in a diligence process, you need to do you have to have an ERP. I think there's no other way around it. I think hats off to people. All entrepreneurs should push things that slow you down and add administrative burden and increase your SaaS bill. You should try and avoid those as long as possible. But I think at the couple of markets, 30 million plus, there's a time when you have to grow up. And probably one of the biggest mistakes we've made over the years is we don't accept that we need to grow up. And so we're chasing our tails and hacking everything. And I think, we're finally in a good place. We're settled. We're working well with the Fulfil team. There's still stuff they can improve, and they're receptive to that. And that really hopefully sets us up for kind of long-term success until Unilever want us to onboard on their ERP. And then, that's going to be a whole fun story. But no, we're sticking with Fulfil for now, and we're we're really happy and big proponents of them.
Dude, and it could go the other way. Unilever could move completely to Fulfil. So if you want to be like Ridge, like Wild, like soon to be Unilever, if you want to be sold for $10 quadrillion.
Yeah, if you want to make 10 billion, this is what you got to do. That's how you become successful like me. It's all about your ERP.
Yeah. You heard it here from Freddy. He's moving to Dubai. He's avoiding his taxes. He's a $10 billion quadrillionaire, and he loves Fulfil. So thank you for being here.